Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got another great show lined up for you today. We have part two of our discussion with John Kennedy, host of the Always Irish Notre Dame Football Podcast. This time, talking about what John's seen at Notre Dame preseason camp, as well as outlooks for the big games of this upcoming season for Notre Dame football. But before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell right there on your screen. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, and we should come right up. Make sure you share the podcast with friends, family, enemies, whoever, people that you know that love sports talk and just might want to hear a different voice than what you would hear on the normal mainstream sports media platforms. Also, please, if you enjoy the content, make sure you give us that 5-star review. You do all this, you know what happens. It helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. Now let's get right to it. Part two of our discussion with John Kennedy, Always Irish. Here we are back with part two of our discussion with John Kennedy, host of the Always Irish Notre Dame Football Podcast, to this time go ahead and discuss Notre Dame in depth, discuss some camp stories, as well as season outlook for 2023. John, welcome back.
Well, hey, it's good to be here, man. I like that you got the green shirt going. We're all ready for Notre Dame, baby. I love it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I know you were at camp for a couple of days so far this camp season. Tell me a little bit about what you saw, maybe what stood out to you, any players that we should keep an eye on that maybe aren't some of the names, not the Sam Hartmans or the Jaden Greathouses. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's been so much change from year one to year two of Marcus Freeman taking over Notre Dame, both in terms of the roster construction and the assistant coaches. There has been a major turnover. So this is year two of Freeman, but there's a lot of year one going on where there's some new stuff all over. Everybody understands Notre Dame's got a very challenging schedule. They play 3 teams that are top 10 teams from all over the country. You can't have with landmine games playing it all around them. It's going to be a very competitive schedule. So I think you got a couple things in play. Number one is, how much more comfortable practically is Marcus Freeman in year two than year one of trying to figure it all out on the fly? First time head coach at Notre Dame under that microscope. You have that narrative and how he is going to develop. And then when you look at the actual team, Sam Hartman being in the building kind of raises the realistic hopes of what's possible here. I just think Notre Dame is not used to having a quarterback that can make all the throws, has all the experience, isn't going to get overwhelmed in the moment. Most Notre Dame camps were going, who's the starting quarterback going to be? And then we debated and whatever. And it's like, if you think you have 2 to even have 1, at least we're avoiding all of that. Okay. So that guy being in the building raises, if things go right, what's feasible and what's possible. I think there's still a lot of questions, but there's a lot to like. Right. One of the things I'm learning is, defensively, I think Notre Dame thinks they're a little deeper, bigger, faster, and more athletic than what the John Q public thinks. There are behind-the-scenes players that are bulking up, showed up ready, and they're going to make plays. There are younger guys that showed up looking more ready to play than a lot of people thought.
Let me interrupt you for a second here, John. As you mentioned defense, this is one of the things that really surprised me from what I've been reading and hearing about camp so far, is that I am hearing that the strength of the defense, and this is something that's been problematic for me for years.
The next thing I was going to say, I'll let you rip
backfield,
it. It's the next thing out of my mouth.
Absolutely. Now, we know Benjamin Morrison is likely going to be an All-American. He stays healthy. The guy is a ball hawk. He's a playmaker. He's a shutdown corner. And so that's awesome, because we've seen year in and year out, Notre Dame may have been able to hold up moderately so against the run, but get torched in the big play pass game. And so to hear this season coming in that the strength of that defense is going to be the defensive backfield, especially the corners, well, that can help to make up for a lack of what it would be perceived as a dominant edge rusher, because now you can get what we call coverage sacks. What are your thoughts on that? What have you been hearing? What have you been seeing, John?
Yeah, it's a big difference, man. My whole life, that secondary makes Notre Dame,
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame fans nervous. So
Absolutely.
to hear that they're really strong. And the other thing is, it's not just one guy. Like we had Julian
Mm-hmm.
Love before, and it was
Yeah.
great, but we didn't have enough around him to be able to pick up the slack.
Right.
But Notre Dame's corner situation is about in as good of a position as I ever remember it being, and that
Mm-hmm.
is saying a lot.
Right.
That that linebacker group takes a lot of flack. I'm a hard on them at times. All of those starters are back with another year of experience with athletic younger guys ready to press them if they don't get the job done. But I really think, and you're in the SEC territory, you'll know this. You got to be decent up front, man. You got to hold
Yeah.
up against the run. You
Yeah,
got
you
to be
do.
are able to get after the passer. Like you are just going to have to do that if you have any dreams of making a playoff or anything. And I was a little nervous about that. Are we big enough on the defensive front? Do we have a rotation that allows guys to take a breather without a
Mm-hmm.
big drop off?
Right.
Everything I've seen and heard is really positive about that. Riley Mills came in bigger, stronger. Howard Cross looks good. You got guys like Jason Anye coming. That's a name coming out of nowhere. And everybody says he looks great. Now, you do got to ask, it's fall camp. How much of this is legit? Like, what
Young
are we going
receivers.
against here?
Yeah.
Live bullet
First year
reps? I
quarterback,
don't know.
semi-new system. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think it's good to hear that they believe they're going to be able to rotate a bigger group of 7, 8, 9 guys on that defensive front and be able to hold up. And so I think defensively, it's just very interesting to hear people say that the
Absolutely.
corners might be the strength of the Notre Dame team.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, with that, and this is immediately when you hear that, I am so looking forward to what matchup? Benjamin Morrison, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like that's going to be an incredible matchup come September 23rd.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all know Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the best player in the country. And then or maybe some would say Caleb Williams, but I don't want to talk about him because I still have nightmares.
You should.
I do.
Yeah, what do you wake up and see his painted fingernails and
my gosh,
what's going on?
I have nightmares of the guy breaking 11 tackles, completing the pass, and throwing the ball so hard that both feet come off the ground. But anyway, we're not doing a Caleb Williams love fest here. He's a Trojan and we can't have that. but yeah, that Benjamin Morrison, Marvin Harrison Jr. matchup I think should be incredible. And realistically, Ohio State, not to hijack where you were going, but Ohio State with a new and unproven quarterback incoming, this could be a time where maybe they're right for the picking, and Notre Dame, gets one of those big wins like they got last year against Clemson, or like they got in the pandemic year against Clemson.
Yeah,
Bruce,
you gotta think about it this way, man. Notre Dame has not beat Ohio State since 1936. Okay, it's been a long time. 1936, you heard that right. And here's what I'm looking at.
Yikes.
Even acknowledging the quarterback disparity, where Notre Dame's the one at home, that helps, and then we're the ones with the experienced quarterback, and they're going to be breaking in not a freshman, but a first-time starter. We still have to acknowledge, even as Notre Dame fans, Ohio State has way more talent top to bottom in their program than Notre Dame.
Correct.
However, can Notre Dame leverage the benefits they do have just enough to get them over the hump? Being at home, having that experience at quarterback, whatever. If Notre Dame's got a shot to do it against Ohio State, this is it. It is teed up for you. You're at home. It's at night. You got a 6-year quarterback. If you can't get them now, then I have no answer for you other than you better start recruiting a hell of a lot better. If you can't do it now, that's the only other answer. Because this is as good of a shot as Notre Dame's going to get at that.
Right. Yeah. So we talked about the defensive backfield. We talked about the defensive line. And real quick before we move on from that, I like that you mentioned the possible ability to rotate on the defensive line without a lot of drop off, because I've said it before, talking about Notre Dame, a lot of times our first 11 is not, the Irish first 11 is not terribly outmatched in terms of talent. But the difference is when that second 11 comes in and you start rotating guys, but the Alabamas and the Clemsons still have 4- and 5-star guys coming in.
And, you know,
that's what makes the difference.
Bruce, you know what the best case study for that is?
Mm.
The playoff game in, I believe 18 against Clemson.
Yeah.
Julian Love got hurt in that game, and they
that.
targeted the second he left the game. They said, throw it to whoever's taking that guy's spot.
Yep.
And they torched us the rest of the game.
Yep.
And that is an exhibit of exactly what you're talking about your top end guys being okay, but having no depth.
Right.
The other thing that is a compliment to the Clemson staff. They identified that right away and knew to go after it. And that's great coaching, and I got to credit them for that. Right. But that's a great example. And I think, Bruce, that's where you're starting to see, Notre Dame isn't in the top 5 in overall recruiting at the end of the cycle or whatever. But you start hearing about that blue chip rate and building these high quality guys with upside. I think you're starting to see that permeate on both sides of the ball, where the younger guys coming in are, if they're not able to play right away, they're closer to being able to play right away. And it raises the competition in the building. My guy, Brennan Vernon, he's a guy that I got to know his family as a recruit. They liked my show. I got to know them. He came in and everybody said, this guy's body's unbelievable. We haven't had a freshman D lineman be this violent since like the 80s. I love it. Like he's not overwhelmed physically. He's got the mind for it. Go in there ready to crack heads. So while it isn't elite, Notre Dame is starting to fill out that roster with better depth. They think they're going to be able to go 7, 8, 9 deep in that defensive line and still be able to get after it and hold up against a run and make some plays. But, you know, Aiden Gobera, Trey Orr, Nana, like Tuli Alamaka, like these are not household names, but these are guys that I'm hearing really good things about. So is Gabe Rubio, like all those guys are not household names, but Notre Dame's going to need them up front to get pressure and hold up on the run. But we need to see it in action, Bruce. It's one thing to report it at camp when you're running around and everything. Like first, I need to see it against NC State. That's kind of the first intermediary test. And then how do you hold up against Ohio State? But I admit so far that the reports about the defense have been better than what I was expecting them to be. Take that, whatever you want in camp.
So we talked about Ohio State, which is obviously the big one early, and we will get to the Trojans and Caleb. But no, seriously, Clemson, I think, may be a little more difficult than previously thought for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're at home. They will have a chip on their shoulder after the beating they took in South Bend last year. And secondly, or I guess thirdly, the fact that offense will be revamped and retooled, and they got one of the bright young offensive minds in the country because they signed Garrett Riley away from TCU to be their OC.
Why do we got to worry about so many damn Riley family members in a year, Bruce? I got one at USC I got to deal with. I got one in Death Valley I got to deal with.
That's right. Yeah.
Can't these guys team up and go to the NFL?
That would be, they need to do that. But yeah, you know, Clemson, I think, is going to be much improved. Now, I don't know if they're recruiting at the same level along the defensive line, which really has been the true key to their dominance. Obviously, they've had really good
Trevor Lawrence
passers. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. But in my estimation, the real key to their dominance over the last 10 years, that run they have had defensive lineman after defensive lineman that was NFL caliber and going on to the next level. So,
and especially doing so in the ACC, let's be honest, it ain't the SEC. They were able to push around most of those teams week to week with that dominant defensive front. And Bruce, I'm telling you, people are probably underestimating what they will be. It's like they're not what they were when they had their little run, and it's like they've fallen off. Like, Dabo's a damn good coach. He's pissed off about what happened last year.
Correct.
Like, they are going to be significantly improved.
Correct.
One of my big questions is, by the time we get to that point in the schedule in November, I want to know what's on the line. What is that? What is on the line? Is the playoff on the line for us, for them, for one or the other, or both? Like, we're getting into November then. I want to know what's on the line, and it'll shape the vibe of whatever that's going to be. But I expect them to be improved. I do.
Absolutely. So let's let's go ahead and let's get past Clemson and let's talk about our final the final of the big three opponents for Notre Dame this season. And of course, that is Notre Dame's ultimate rival, although it seems like everybody who plays against Notre Dame is a rival for the most part.
Yeah.
But the big one, which is obviously USC Trojans, Lincoln Riley, returning Heisman winner, Caleb Williams, who, jeez, he's really something special. As much as I'm not a fan, obviously he is something special. Tremendous,
Yep.
tremendous player. What are your thoughts? I don't know if you've really given any thought to that game as yet. For me personally, I'm thinking gotta find a way to be uber physical within the rules with that guy and put him down. That's the only thing I can think of, because I looked at what Utah was able to do to him in the Pac-12 championship game last year. I think Utah beat them twice, as a matter of fact. And I look at that,
they did.
and I say Utah had a very similar model to what Notre Dame does. Probably a little more creative in the passing game offensively, maybe, but a similar model. Elite tight end, Dalton Kincaid, I believe, was their top tight end. Who, him and Michael Mayer were, a couple of the top tight ends in the country. Obviously, NFL guys now. But they really employed the tight end well. They ran the football well. They mashed you up front offensively and defensively with the tough lines in the trenches. So they were almost like an upgraded version of what Notre Dame wanted to be last year. How much do you think Notre Dame will be able to take from what Utah did? Because if that's the case, obviously you don't have the exact same personnel, but I'm watching a lot of what Utah was able to scheme up defensively to get after Caleb Williams and really cause this guy a hard time in terms of trying to beat him this year and not let him have yet more Heisman moments against the Irish.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
If you're wondering how much Notre Dame wants to emulate what Utah was able to do to USC, look no further than the fact that we tried to go hire their offensive coordinator.
Great point. Great point.
All right. We literally
Ludwig,
tried to hire that guy for that reason, because he has USC's number. And so, that didn't work out for a bunch of behind the scenes reasons. But listen, man, big picture. As much as I love Marcus Freeman and his personality and how genuine and the motor on the recruiting trail, and he has all the perfect things to say. If you're the Notre Dame coach, you start out 0-2 against USC. That has not boded well for anybody who's in that category.
Right.
I need you to avoid a losing streak to start your tenure against our bitter rival. And so it's at home. That should help. They got to come to your place. I am with you. You just got to keep hitting that kid legally. I'm not asking for no Tanya Harding. Okay.
Right.
But legally, you got to clip that guy, and you got to hit him, and you got to pressure him. You got to mess up the timing. And I realized Notre Dame fans were frustrated with the holds that weren't called last. I get all of that. You got to play good physical defense and get after that guy. As good as that secondary looks like it's going to be for Notre Dame, they can't hold for 12 seconds while he's running around finding somebody.
Right.
The first 4 or 5, they do a good job, but you can't expect them to hold up if he's doing circus tricks all over.
Then it turns into a scramble drill, and who can really...
Exactly. And so tip the cap to the guy. He's an incredible talent. He's
he is.
Way too arrogant for my liking. And I know that's a LA thing. That's a Hollywood thing. To be all arrogant. The only way to shut him up is to physically put him on his butt repeatedly. And so you got to unleash the dogs, get after them, and get after them at home. And here's something I got to warn Notre Dame fans about, though. Too many Notre Dame fans are saying, it's all offense, it's all offense, it's all offense. I don't know if they realize that defense is going to look a lot different. They dipped into that transfer portal, and over half of that defense isn't going to have the same starters as last year.
That is true.
They went and got that Georgia guy that was making plays in the playoff and brought him over there. So Notre Dame fans shouldn't be going, oh, it's all offense, and look at it that way. They are rapidly getting better on defense, and Notre Dame's got to figure it out. You don't get to start 0-2 against your bitter rival at Notre Dame. So they better figure that out and play them good at home.
There you go. So, John, before I let you get out of here, I guess I'll just let you kind of wrap it overall. If you have a kind of overarching thought on year 2 of Marcus Freeman, this Notre Dame football season, kind of where you think it'll end up, what you think the Irish are capable of based on what we know so far.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting. I could see circumstances where Notre Dame goes 11-1 easy. Like I could see that path and say it's realistic if things go right and your health works out. I could see that. If they went 9-3, I could see that too. If a few things go against them and the wrong guys get hurt, I could see that too. If I was forced to put money on it, I'd land right at 10 or 2, and then leeway 1 up, 1 down, I think is perfectly reasonable. Notre Dame fans aren't going to be happy with 9-3. I don't care who the 3 are. That ain't going to cut it. That ain't going to cut it for the Notre Dame fan. But I think with Hartman, all things are possible, but it's reliant upon other things to have to come together. And I'll give you an example. I'm worried about Notre Dame's interior offensive line. I love Fisher and Alt at the tackles. I got questions in the middle there if we're going to be able to hold up against the best 3 teams we play. I love the running back situation. Tight ends, I'm not even worried about. As much as I love Hartman, what am I getting out of this wide receiver group? Are we really going to have to rely on true freshmen to go out there and make plays? As good as Hartman is, that's a little concerning to me if Colsey and Merriweather are starting to take a back seat to Greathouse and Flores, who are 18-year-olds. Like, how does that work out? So, but I just think, look at it this way, Bruce. Even going back to Kelly, Notre Dame made it pretty far with a severely limited offense every single year. And we still made the playoff a couple times and were damn good and had good records. Just imagine what's possible if you actually have a real life offense that forces a defense to play Notre Dame honest. You can't just get up to the line, stop the run on early downs, and then double the tight end, and then you're getting a punt. They shouldn't be able to do that this year. Notre Dame's going to be able to test teams, and that makes everything possible. It's just a matter of everything coming together, getting a couple breaks you need, staying healthy in key areas. So I don't know, but this is a big year, Bruce. That year 2 is a big year. Freeman's trying to make up ground from last year. Everything in the country changes the following year. Like, this is a big pivot year.
Sure is. Well, we're going to leave it right there, John. Great insight from you on Notre Dame football as always. Definitely appreciate it. Before you get out of here, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. Just type in Always Irish. You'll find me on Twitter. Same thing, Always Irish. And then USA Today Fighting Irish Wire. We have a good team over there writing Notre Dame articles on the website every day. So for those of you that like to read and be challenged with reading and makes you think of things different, it's a great resource. So every day head over to Irish Wire ND and look for my articles and everybody else's.
All right. Well, listen, if you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell. Make sure you stay up to date whenever we drop new content on the show. John, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming in, man. Awesome talking to you as always. Everybody, we'll see you next time, and look forward to seeing your comments in the comment section. And I'm out. Peace.
See ya.